Hello, everyone. Welcome to LifeEdge. This is episode number 3. I'm Rick Zanotti, and here we go. And we are back. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. This is our 3rd episode. Right next to me in the center window. If you can guess what's behind door number 1, you win. No, we've got with us Dr. Susan Nash. Hey, Susan, how are you?
Good. Great to be here.
And she's transmitting she's transmitting from a very undisclosed location in Mexico. You can hear all the wild animals all around her. If we lose her at one point, that means a mango has fallen from a tree overhead and she may be knocked out. Hopefully she won't be. But Susan, how you doing over there?
Good. But yes, there's some wildlife. You might hear some parrots and pigeons and roosters and, yes, the crash of falling mangoes.
Wow. And our guest today, this is actually fun. You are actually our first guest.
I'm glad to be your first guest.
And it's Dr. Patti Shank. I'm surrounded by doctors today. Well, actually, no, Susan is surrounded. I'm just on the edge over here. But we've got with us Dr. Patti Shank. She just wrote a book. Tell us about your new book.
Well, it was kind of an escape for me. Rick, as you know, I've been writing learning books. And I started my career as a health educator, and this book has been calling to me for about 8 or 9 years. And so while I was going through some really rough times in the last couple of years, I just started writing. And this is the book that came out of that writing. I had some people reading it as I was writing it, and as I was writing it, those people told me to keep writing. And so that's the book that came out. And you were one of the people that read the initial book as it was being published, and that's the book. So I'm really excited to be talking to you about it because you're one of the people that kind of said to me, Patti, make it happen, make it finished. Make it get finished. So thank you.
It's great, and it's a very good book. Aside from being friends with Patti, it's a really good book. I actually really enjoyed it. There's some great advice in that book, and it's all practical. It's not just you're reading a book about somebody who just says, I'm perfect, and I'm going to write a book about how I'm perfect. No, not at all. It's a book that helps. I think it's a book that has just very good salient points about be the best boss of you. I mean, what else can you be the boss of?
Patti, how did you come up with the name? Because it's very, very compelling.
Well, one of the reasons I used that title is when you're little, you know how you say to other people, "You're not the boss of me," and what occurred to me is when you get older, you should be the boss of you. If you're not going to be the boss of anyone else, and really we can't be the boss of anyone else, even if we're their boss, we can't boss anyone else. It's very hard to be even your own boss. We should be our own boss. And so what does that mean? What does it mean to be the boss of you? And so I thought to myself, well, what it means is to use the power and control you have over your own life. And so I wrote a book about what does it mean to control your own life? What power do we have over our own lives? And so Rick and Susan, what I did is I sat down and I just started writing about what is it? What power do we have over our own lives? A lot of people would say we don't have any power over our own lives. And unfortunately, if you think you don't have any power over your own life, you're right, you don't have any power over your own life. But that's not so. We have a great deal of power over our own lives. And the more power you accept over your own life conditions, the more power you will actually have over your life conditions. What do you think about that? Do you think that's so? Susan? Rick?
I do think so, and it reminds me of a quote in Tender as the Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald, and it's paraphrased. It said, it's something like, it had been a long lesson, but she had learned it. Either you think for yourself or you force others to think for you. Yeah. And they take power from you, and they take your decisions away from you.
I think that's exactly right. And what people don't realize is that you either think for yourself or you give your power away. And that's one of the first things I started writing down, was the ways in which we give our power to other people. And we don't realize it, that we often give our power to other people, and we're angry about that, but we don't realize that we've given it to others. And so the first thing we have to realize is the ways in which we allow others to take power, and the ways in which we do not accept our own power. And unfortunately, being the boss of you is really hard. It takes a lot of effort, and that's why people don't exercise the power they have over themselves.
Also, Patti, part of the problem is a lot of times people, let's face it, we start out life fairly clean, blank slate. Okay. What's the old saying? There's two guarantees in life, taxes and death. But everything in between that is your choice. It's whatever you do with. Okay, you know you've got a couple of things you can't get away with. But you have choices in life. And a lot of times people are not taught, especially in the school systems or anything else, that, critical thinking or thought or choices, and let's not even talk about accountability. You are accountable for your own actions. Whatever you do is what you've decided to do. Whether it's a smart or a dumb decision, that's your choice. And a lot of people like to just relegate being the boss to someone else because it's a lot easier. And when you have that kind of situation,
and then they have to live with someone else's decisions. What people don't realize is that sometimes they'll say, well, so-and-so did that to me. Mm-hmm. But that's not really so. A lot of things are done to us, but then we have the option on how to deal with that and where to go from there.
Yeah, for example, one common one is, let's say you hang out with the wrong people who aren't helping you, they're not bringing you up, they're not helping in any which way. So when something goes wrong, you blame them for it. Well, no, nobody told you to hang out with those people. And we are known to a certain point by the people we hang out with. And frankly, everything does come down to what's our choice.
Yes.
There's always that, what was it? Yogi Berra, he had a great line, if you see a fork in the road, take it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, there's also, there are things that happen in our lives that we don't have a choice about, who our parents are, for instance. Sure. But that's, how many years of that, how many years do we have of that? What, 16, 18, 20?
Well, in today's day and age, 42, but who's counting?
Well, there are plenty of people who have bad life situations when they're growing up. But how many years of your life are you going to say that's going to be the reason that my life is bad?
Oh, that's so true. I remember when I was about 27. I didn't get along with my dad too well till I was about 27. We both had different ways of looking at the world. And at one point, I said to him, Dad, I'm 27, mind you. And I said, all these years I thought you were the a-hole. And I said, but it was really me. It was all me. And he goes, I know. And once again, he was right,
really
and I felt
point
like
about how we start to accept others, but only really if there's a certain amount of self-acceptance. Mm-hmm. And both Patti and Rick, what I think that I'm hearing a lot of is the necessity to have self-acceptance, and then also it ties in with self-regulation and self-concept. And I found the quote, in Tender as the Night, and it's great. I'll read it. It had been a long lesson, but she had learned it. Either you think or others have to think for you. And this is the good part. And take power from you, pervert and discipline your natural tastes, civilize and sterilize you.
Yeah.
That's good. Sterilize you. That's a good one.
Yeah. And I hear from people a lot of times who say, well, it was this person or it was that person, and they didn't accept me. And a lot of times I'll say, but do you accept them the way they are? I mean,
right.
We have things about ourselves that we want people to accept. Our own problems, our own circumstances, our own limitations. We need to also accept that others have theirs, and just let it go. One of the things I talk about in the book a lot is to accept what is and move on and deal with it. Just deal with what is. Nothing that is has to limit you. You are who you are. They are who they are. Move on. You're not going to change other people. I mean, that's probably for me has been the biggest jolt for me is people are who they are, and you're not going to change anyone. But the biggest difference you can make in your own life is by changing yourself to whom you want to be the person who is going to be the person you want to be. And the others in your life, they have to work on themselves. There's nothing you can do to change another human being.
Now we have some.
It's incredibly hard to change you.
Yeah. Now we have some quotes.
I urgently want to know how I can change myself for the better. So Patti, I'm desperate. How?
Well, first you have to figure out what it is you want in your life, and then what is it that you need to change to get there. I wanted to be someone who was peaceful, who felt at peace, and the Patti that needed to get there was someone who let go. And how do you let go? By letting go. I think the biggest piece of advice for me, and I wrote this in the book as well, is that all the things in your life that are holding you back are just thoughts. They're simply thoughts. They're tapes in your head. They're thoughts. And for me, the person that wanted to be peaceful and loving and kind was just someone who just let go. They were just thoughts. Just let it go. And so I did. Period. Now, that person comes back because it's tapes, right? But when they come back, I just say, I don't want those. Let it go. And I do. And the more often you do something, the easier it gets. It's just, you and I know that from learning, right? That's why I say learning is everything. When you understand how you learn, you understand everything. The more often you do something, the easier it is to do it. So one of the things I learned how to do was to do it more and more often, to attach something to an antecedent, for example. Every time I feel like I have to change someone, I say, you can't change them. Let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. And so all those things about me that I want to be different, I want to be more at peace. Every time I feel like I have to change something, I say to myself, you can't change Patti. You can't change the people you live with. You can't change your mom. Let it go. And I've learned how to let go of me. And by letting go of me, I've learned how to let go of others. Does that make any sense?
It totally does. Now with learning, I was thinking a lot of the things you talked about would tie in well with like goal setting. Do you incorporate some of that?
Yes, absolutely. The people who have written about habits have talked about habits are so ingrained that you actually have, in order to change a habit, you can't you can't just change it. You have to replace it. Bad habits have to be replaced. And when you understand habits, you understand misunderstandings as well, that they have to be replaced. And they're very deep-seated. And so what you have to the best way to replace a habit, the best way to get rid of a habit is to replace it. And so you go in and you have to actually go in and replace the antecedent, find out what the antecedent is, and replace it with, find that antecedent and replace it with another one, and just keep doing it and doing it and doing it until it's actually replaced. And so I found out what my antecedents for feeling spun up, about needing to change other people and myself. And I just simply start deep breathing and realizing you can't do it. Just let it go. Let it go. And it's working. But it's taking time, because that's what it does. It takes time.
Now, Patti,
So what was your need to change people doing to you before?
I'm a very intense person. It's a personality thing. You know, I'm an intense person. I want things to be better. I always want things to be better. But once I understood that people are who they are, and it's not bad. It just is.
Now, Patti, you could have changed the name of the book a little bit. Be the best boss of you, and the tagline would have been, "Or I will be the best boss of you."
A view from me.
Say it again.
I said you could be the best boss of you, or I will be the best boss of you.
Oh my! I'm having a hard enough time being the best boss of myself. Thanks. So I do want to say this, that almost all of what I wrote, I researched to see whether the things that I was writing about, the things I wrote about, had a research background, and they do.
Sounds like somebody on a megaphone.
Something going on there? What is that?
I don't know what they're doing. What are they doing, Susan? It's like a procession going on. He's selling something, isn't he? Okay. Anyway.
Sorry.
Hey, Rick.
Cool.
Yes.
It's cool, but kind of loud.
It's what?
I'm going to put up slide 3.
Slide 3. Here we go.
So throughout the book, I put up some sayings, and this is the one that I think resonates with me every day. That the better boss of you needs to be ready to adapt to what actually works. If you're doing things on a day-to-day basis that don't work, you need to find things that work. that things like worry don't work. And I'm a worrier. And one of the things I say that makes me laugh, if I could make a living by worrying, I'd be a millionaire. But no one will actually pay me to worry for them. So if you're doing things in your life that don't work, find things that work. Start reading about things that actually work. Start looking for people in your life that are doing things that work, and notice what works. And stop doing things that don't work, because they don't work. And if they don't work, get rid of them.
That song is actually perfectly accurate. Don't worry, be happy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of truth there. And you can't worry about things you can't control. For
Right,
example, a lot of
exactly.
people
What's the
worry
point?
about everything, and you can't control everything. There's things that you just simply can't control. Why worry about that? Or why worry about a future you haven't yet carved out?
Right.
That's
We're-
true.
Yeah, so were you the one, Rick, that was talking to me about the future and the present?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that there is no past because it's gone. There's no future because it's never here.
Right. Well, the future hasn't gotten. Well, we're in the future. Every moment we're in the future because there's a misconception that everybody says you have to live in the now. Well, you're living very short segments of time if you're in the now because the now is infinitesimally small.
Right.
So therefore, you're never in the now. The now's gone. By the time you're aware of it, it's gone, long gone. So you're
Right.
actually living more in the future as you go. We're in a stream. I think the
Right.
best way to put it is probably, and quantum physics is starting to realize that, time, space, it's all just a stream. And the stream may have many different bifurcations where your stream can go in different directions, and those are probably the directions we take. And how does that affect us? How does that affect, the choices we make, what we do? You can't live in the past because, you can learn from the past, but you can't live in it.
But that's you're right. And the past, a lot of people are constantly replaying the past, but it's useless.
Right. Right. You can learn from it. There is some stuff you can learn from the past, hopefully not to make the same mistakes. You can relive memories in the past that were fun or, things you want to see again. But you can't live in the past because you won't be living anywhere. You'll be in a stasis. On the other hand, in a quantum physics point of view, you could travel with your mind in time anywhere. So where do you want to travel? Do you want to travel someplace miserable? Do you want to travel somewhere nice?
Right.
Again, choices. What do we want to do with our lives, and how do the actions we take influence where our life goes? Because everything we do can push us into another direction. We're like, kind of like
Absolutely.
pinballs.
And the research is showing that what we think about is where we go.
Mm-hmm.
So that we do actually have more control over our thoughts than we think. And if we're thinking negative thoughts all the time, that's where we're going.
Well, yeah, because you're attracting everything that's negative to you.
That's
Because
right.
you're not seeing anything that's positive because it's not part of you at that moment. And so
Right.
therefore, even if positive things show up, you don't notice them.
Right.
That's a really good point. And also, Rick and Patty, here's a thought that I have. So much of it has to do with probability and statistics. So
Yes.
we think about our future, and one of the things that makes it more comforting to maybe look in the past is that we think, okay, well, I can learn from the past and get a sense of probability and statistics and probabilistic outcomes of what I'm going to do. But then, how much is that actually applicable? Because things change all the time, and so how much of that is mediated by our emotional situation? So, wishful thinking or apocalyptic thinking, either one. So, how do you untangle all that?
Wow. That part of that depends, I think, on what you choose to think about. And one of the chapters I wrote in the book, and all the chapters in the book are really, really short.
Good.
It is to unsubscribe from negative thinking because just unsubscribe from the things in your life which don't add to it. I don't spend a lot of time thinking anymore about things that are terrible because they don't help me in any way. So there are people who want to just talk about things that are awful, and I just don't want to go there. I may want to do things in order to make the world a better place, and I do want to do that. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't want to be in that stream. But that's making the world a better place, not thinking about the world as a terrible place, because I don't wish to think about that. I don't think of the world as a terrible place, and I don't wish to be around or with people who believe that, because I don't think it is. There are, and I don't think that means that I'm wishful thinking either. I just think that, yes, there are things that happen that are terrible, but I don't think the world is terrible.
Well,
I think it's what we make it.
And Patty, that's a really good point, because if you watch the news, or the typical news cycles, 24-hour news, where they repeat the same thing 100 times, or just regular news, they only focus on the negative.
I think there's a reason for that.
Sure.
They're selling us
Well, sure.
something.
We talked about this last week. It's all about fear. If
Yeah,
people
they
are,
want us to be afraid, so
Yeah.
they can sell us their fear. And that's something I decided a few years ago as well, is I'm not afraid anymore.
Yeah.
And again, fear is a thought, and I've chosen to not have that thought anymore. Now, again, do I occasionally feel fear? I do. But here's something that occurred to me. At the moment that I feel that fear, I can also say to myself, right this minute, am I okay? And the answer is yes, I'm okay right this minute. So I don't need to feel that fear. And so I don't. And it's done. It's over. Gone.
yeah, and that makes all the sense, because if you live in fear, you don't really live very well. You're too busy being afraid of things, and people have such irrational fears, partly because it's reinforced by media. Every time you see an accident on the street, you go, "My God, that could have been me driving." Really? I mean, yeah, it could be, but do you really think about that? And the more you think about driving badly, chances are you're probably going to have an accident, because you're focused on your fear rather than what's around you.
Well, I've just simply decided that when and if there comes a time in my life where there is something that I really need to be afraid of, I will be afraid at that time if in some way that will help me. But I actually think that it won't help me, and I will use my ability to think critically about what will help me at that moment.
Well, I'll tell you something. For example, there's a lot of, people say that somebody did a heroic action in combat, or somebody did a heroic action saving somebody else's life. More often than not, that's actually a completely lucky, fearful reaction that turned out well. More
Right.
often than not.
Now,
Now,
I
if you're a
don't know.
professional, that's
I have
different.
been in some pretty bizarre situations where I don't know why it turned out well, and it just did.
Mm-hmm.
I was held up at gunpoint in the inner harbor in Baltimore when I lived there. I ended up doing okay, and I was not shot. And the young man who held me up, I don't know where he is now. He did not shoot me. He was on the ground, and I was not shot. And something I did put him on the ground. Stupid, lucky, I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that was. Hopefully he is okay and not shooting people now.
It was a good kick, right?
Yeah, actually it was a good kick.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good example, Patty. But here's another question for you, and also for you, Rick. Okay, are you a people pleaser? Do you find...
Evidently not. Given things that have happened to me, no, I'm not a people pleaser. But I wrote about that in the book too. You have to figure out what your life's about, and you are going to anger some people if your life is about something greater than yourself. You will be saying no to people who want it to be about them.
Okay, but how do you do that to a person who's a tremendous people pleaser, and they... It's not like they think that they understand they're making their own decisions, but that they truly want to bring about a better world through peace and harmony and making everybody happy, like the win-win things. Can you elaborate more about getting through the idea of being able to deal with making some people that you really care about a little bit disappointed or angry?
Oh boy. I don't know that I have a good answer to that, Susan. I've had people in my life who weren't happy with my answers to them, and and I'll be honest, I felt sad that we weren't in harmony on how I felt and how they felt. And I did feel, there were times in my life where I felt anguish over the fact that we weren't in the same place. But at my age now, I just accept that we don't all see things the same way, and that has to be okay. When I was younger, I didn't feel as good about that. I mean, I wrote in the book about my mom was someone that you either saw it her way or she was going to make you suffer. And one of the things that allowed my life to open up for me was my mom being gone. I'm sad about that. I wish that I had made peace with her before she was gone, but there wasn't any peace. We did not. There are times where I feel peace, that somewhere from beyond that she and I will someday be able to say, it's okay. I don't know whether that feeling comes from me needing to feel that it's okay. I just don't know. I mean, I've had people in my family who have had different religious beliefs than I have, who are angry at me. I just choose to make it's okay. It's okay for people to not agree as long as the disagreement isn't violent. It's fine. We don't have to agree, do we?
No, and to answer my answer to your question, Susan, would be it's a matter of scope. We can't control the world, and a lot of the people who want to do good and all that, their scope is ridiculously stupid, because you can't change the world by yourself. You can't even change your neighborhood. So until you start small and you start at the community, your family level, and you work your way out towards a community, you really, unless you write or do a lot of things that get out to more people, the scope is pretty small.
I've always believed that the scope of change is one-to-one. It's the reason I write. My hope is that there will be somebody who reads something I say, and even something as simple as it's okay to say no so that you can live a better life. That's my hope. As Rick said, I'm certainly not perfect. I'm on a journey too. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, and going back to something you said earlier about being a people person, or not a people pleaser, you really can't please people. Unless they're truly more elevated, evolved, they have gratitude. Most people don't give a damn what you do for them. They accept it, they take it, they don't necessarily appreciate it. And so therefore, as long as you're happy with that, then you're going to be miserable, because you won't be that happy doing things for people that really don't give a damn what you've just done for them.
Right.
And so at one point, you've got to use some discretion to save your energy for the people that really matter. And maybe the people that care more, or the situations where you may have some more control over those situations and their outcomes. And if you do it for yourself only, you're not going to be happy, because you'll never be able to find anybody who pleases you as much as you want.
Right. So, Susan, what do you think? What do you think about pleasing others?
I think that it starts from an intense empathy, where you can actually feel their pain somehow. And you truly want to, and their pain is like your pain, and you want to somehow take it away, and there's somehow an unwillingness to separate the two beings, and also say, okay, I can stand on my own 2 feet or whatever. It's almost like there's a dependency on that person, seeing that affirmation in their eyes, and they become that sort of mirror state that Lacan talks about in child development, and also it's in literary theory. But I really take it to heart, and I find it to be very difficult, because over my life it's been very difficult for me to be in situations where I have to make a hard decision and have either a confrontation, and I can work myself through it if it's a win-win, or I can see the bigger picture. But if I'm having to look at someone in their face and know that that's going to be painful, it's really hard for me, and that makes you a terrible tennis player. I like to hit back and forth.
I'm just a terrible tennis player anyway, so.
Now, Susan, you're not the type to feel sorry for the ball being hit so much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they want to win, and eventually I just go, okay.
But you know what? Now we're getting a little bit to a certain point of differences between genders. Who wants to win more? Guys tend to be more aggressive. They like the win-win or the I win kind of thing. And women are much more like you just said. Well, you know, I don't care if I win, but it was fun playing and I lost, but it's okay. Though there are very aggressive women who want to win at everything.
Yeah,
so
I've
it just
been with
depends.
those
It
in
just,
the team.
it just really depends. And then when you have a team, now you have a whole mess of people that want to win. And if you don't want to win as much, then the whole team won't win. So you've got that issue. You know, when do you apply win-win? And also, winning is fun. Losing is okay. You learn from losing. You also learn from winning. And the thing is I think as long as you're not arrogant about it, you're not saying, well, I won and you lost. I remember there was a cartoon once. This was an Argentine cartoonist named Kino. And he was great. He was always doing kind of intellectual analysis of people. But he had the two characters. It's sort of like a Charlie Brown for Latin America, if you will. Her name was Mafalda. And she wins a game of chess with this other girl, and the other girl goes, "Ha! I have totally destroyed you, wiped you out. Ha! I lost." And she pulls out a piece of paper and says, "It really doesn't matter if you win or lose. What really matters is that you played the game and you had a really good time. So there."
No,
And she puts her
that's not what really matters. I belong to this women's group, and we play Scrabble. And I'm good with words, but I'm not good with spelling. And there's a woman that I play with who is just a fabulous Scrabble player. And so I thought I had the perfect word, and it was a statistics word. You'll love this, Susan. And it's row, a statistics term, except I didn't know how to spell it, so I put it down. And it was not only, it made a word 4 different ways in between different terms. I put in an O, and she looks at me and she says, "Shank, you suck. You don't even know how to spell it."
That's hilarious.
My parents were so upset with me when I was growing up because while I was really good with words and a good writer, I could never spell. Not only did I not get the word, I think in Scrabble, do you not have to take, if you spell a word and somebody challenges you,
Yep.
you have to take the number of points off. I think it was minus 40 something.
Right. Ooh.
So Katie, if you ever listen to this, you are better than me, and you will always be better than me.
But yeah, that reminds me back to, like, I swam competitively when I was growing up, and I was one of these people with all heart and no talent. And so I love swimming and I like pushing myself. I finally, I did win a few things, but I finally, I went for personal best, and that was always good. And I still like to do that. But then when you get to tennis, which is a completely different mindset, it's like, ugh. And I like what you were saying, Rick, and also that whole, and Patti, those are really great insights and very helpful.
So one of the things I'd like to talk about is this issue about reality, that I have a hard time getting across to people, and I wonder whether the book will actually get this across. And could you show us slide 6?
And here it goes.
And so what this slide is talking about, finding solutions to problems when you can deal with what is. And what is reality. So the point here is that people make up their own story about what is. And so, like when you, so here's my example. When you're looking at a map, if the map isn't accurate, do you guys have a GPS in your car?
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had the GPS take you to the wrong place?
Every day.
Oh, yeah.
So the map is inaccurate, or it's wrong, or it hasn't been updated, or whatever. So in our own minds, let's say you've had a fight with someone, and you have this whole story in your head about what's happened, and you can't fix the communication problem with someone until you understand what's really going on. And so I actually talk about this a fair amount in the book. Your story, their story, and what's real. And that we can't fix problems that are happening in our lives unless we understand what's real, what is. And so the deal with what is that we have to get beyond our own story. And let me see if I have this on another one here.
So, Patti, in essence, you're saying what we have to do is get beyond what isn't.
Well, that too. That we defend our story, and our story is what we've made up about what happened.
Right.
And what we have to do instead, if we care more about fixing things that are wrong in our lives, is to stop making up stories and stop making up our own maps and just stop making up stories and say, what is real here? Does that make any sense? That we have to just, when we want to fix a problem, to just shut up our minds and stop trying to be right and just shut the hell up and stop making up a story and just listen for what is the truth, what is real.
Well, you know, that brings up a good point, and this is something that's been going on for at least 30 years, if not 40. We, as a society, seem to not be able to live in silence at all. We have noise surrounding us every moment of every day. No matter where you go to a mall, you go to a restaurant, you just can't get away from noise, whether it's music noise, whether it's music you like or don't like. You just can't get rid of it. And people cannot for a moment be alone with them. So they go jogging with a Walkman or with an iPod or something just so that they have noise in their head. Now,
right.
that's you don't need that noise. In fact, that noise actually gets in the way.
If you didn't feel the need to constantly tell people how right you are, to make up some kind of story about why your version of the truth is correct, if you just were quiet and lived with the thoughts in your head, you might understand why maybe you're not correct, or why maybe you shouldn't have said what you said, or why maybe someone else should have been listened to more.
Well, I would say as a society, we have a horrible fear of being alone with ourselves.
Yes.
And therefore, you're never at peace.
Well, I just notice now when I'm telling a story. And when I'm telling a story, I know I'm wrong. I just know I'm wrong because I wouldn't need to make up a story if I was making up a story. Just shut up. Just hear it. What is my head? Why is my head making up a story if I'm right?
Well, as a person who's, oh, go ahead.
No, I'm wondering what you're thinking. What are all these stories about?
Well, as a person who's like gone into a lot of in-depth on scripting your life and writing autobiographical things, it's interesting to me exactly what you're saying about how it's very easy to come up with a comfortable explanation of how or why, especially if it has causality. And and then some of the things that have been done over the last several years about re-scripting yourself have to do with say not just redefining your identity, but doing exactly what you're saying, listening and calling into question those underlying assumptions or those cause and effect type of relationships, and then just suspending even the need to have an explanation and having that like quietness. I like that what you're saying, Rick, too, that it's you can't just substitute a story for a story without going through that phase of quietness and listening.
Right. And I also wonder what I tell myself and tell others when they ask is if there are two different stories, then both of them have to be wrong, because there can't be two different versions of reality. Reality is either true or it's false. So what's real is real. So if there's stories about it, then they're wrong. And that doesn't mean someone's lying. It just means just suspend it, you know? Let it just be. You know, it's just people are hurting. Let it just be. It's okay. But just the way it is. And it's, you know, people talk, I was laughing in my mind thinking about, you know, people talking about rebranding themselves. It's like, how come we can't just be who we are? You know, it's funny. I've been thinking about that lately, about who I really am, and being truthful about the fact that I'm intense, and that's okay.
Absolutely.
That intenseness that sometimes people don't like that much is just who I am. And I can be quiet, you know, that intenseness comes out in times as stories, and I can just be quiet instead.
You know, I grew up in New York, and when I moved to LA, I was about probably 14, 15. Everybody thought, hey, you need to chill out and relax. I am relaxed. No. Yeah, it's like, no, you talk too fast.
For you, that's relaxed.
Yeah, I mean, in New York, you're just a little more accelerated. You're faster. You move. I was okay with that. When I came out here, it was like kind of uptight, or no, I'm actually relaxed.
You know, people said that when I moved here to Denver. I'm from the D.C. area, and my parents are New Yorkers. Mm-hmm. People were like, hey, slow down. Yeah, this is slow for me.
Yep. Isn't it funny? But that's all perception. So again, you know, when you play into what reality is, everybody has a slightly different reality depending on where they were raised, brought up, their own personalities, their energy levels, you know, all the things that affect who and what we are. So, you know, and you know, you said something in the beginning, way back at the beginning of the show, that we can't change people. I'll disagree with you on that. We can't change them internally, but you can redirect them a bit.
That's true.
You know, I don't think you can make it.
I mean, here's my question. Do we want to? How about just redirecting our own selves to our own needs?
Well, no, what you're doing when you redirect someone, you're trying to get them to either see a different point or to have them change some of the behaviors that affect you. Because there's always that you component whenever you do anything. So whenever you redirect someone, you know, or if you're teaching something to somebody, you're trying to get them to understand what you're teaching. To a certain point, you're redirecting their thoughts in a classroom setting. You're trying to fill in some thoughts, give them new thoughts, let them consider different things, and then maybe, you know, make up to a certain point their own minds. And that's a problem again with our society. Everybody thinks they have their own reality or truth. The problem is you don't have a million truths. You have a million interpretations. The truth is somewhere absolute, somewhere, somehow, somewhere, but we have a million interpretations of what we think is real. And how do you know your truth is more real than others, or that your truth is worth more or less valid or more valid? You know, so those are the perceptions, how we look at something and what we do with what we look at. And people worry way too much about that stuff too, because, like, I think it was Susan who earlier said, what if you're a people pleaser? what happens when the people you're pleasing aren't all that happy, or they don't like you that much? And a lot of times, if you're trying to please someone, they see you as weak, because that may be their cultural bent, and so you, the people pleaser, now winds up becoming you, the miserable person, because the people pleasing you are now controlling you, or you're pleasing are now controlling you. So it's just sort of interesting that there's so many different permutations of the same problem and how we react to them and how we deal with them. And it all comes down to, ultimately, what resonates with you, what makes you happy, and what makes your life just go in the right direction without constantly deviating off into the weeds, or just getting in troubles that you could have controlled, but maybe for whatever reason you couldn't. We also live in a society which has very low impulse management going on. So people aren't even thinking about anything. They're just doing it. And that doesn't always work out too well. So it's
I think
interesting.
that's interesting. I think that, okay, Patty, you would be great in a team. And just like the strength and the intensity is great. Keep everybody on track. Rick, you would be great in a team because you're like the visionary guiding light, and help people keep it the sort of sense of the ultimate outcome. And then I would be perhaps a facilitator somehow, or doing stuff. I just see that what you guys are saying, it really works, especially in teams.
It could, yeah. It definitely could.
As
But
well,
we're gonna,
well.
Susan, we're gonna put you on a weightlifting campaign, and
So, Susan, do you see yourself as a people pleaser?
Total doormat. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But see, then you and actually, I'd love to give you a copy of the book and see what you think. I think it's a way of giving your power away, and then you wonder, where is it? Why don't I have my own power? And you end up angry. Do you end up angry?
And then I become civilized and sterilized.
Right, but it's funny, in this women's group that I'm with, there's a woman there who is in her 60s, and she, at one of our last meetings, was crying. She said, I still allow people to just do what they want with me, that I am always there to do whatever they want first. And she is sad about that.
but what's she doing about it?
Pardon?
But what's she doing about it?
She wants it to change because it's not okay. I mean, because when people use you, they don't like you. They're using you. That's
Sure.
not the same.
Sure.
That's true. Yep. Painful.
And if you don't give them what they want, they will find someone else to use. That's not the same as caring for you or liking you.
That's true.
I don't know. I'd love to give you a copy of the book and see what you think.
Yeah, because I feel like sometimes all I am is this big shell, and the hermit crab comes around and drags me around.
Right. Yeah, I'd love to see what you think. I have allowed people to use me, but mostly it's been because I misread them. I don't like being used. It makes me very unhappy. But I also don't hold a grudge. I've always been able to let that go. It's, once I realize they're using me, I just let it go.
Well, and I don't want to exaggerate. I don't want to exaggerate, and I don't think that any one person is like just completely a shell with that's invaded by a hermit crab. Or ventriloquist dummy or whatever. I think that it's a matter of who is doing it, and because I don't really feel that I'm a complete doormat in every situation. There are just a few situations where I persistently let myself be a doormat, and I feel angry, not so much as avoidance. I end up running away, and it doesn't solve anything.
Yeah, no, I understand, and my husband calls me Bambi for allowing people to use me, so he must see me different than I see myself, so. Interesting. So what do you think about the amount of power we have over our own lives? Are we mostly thrown to the winds in terms of luck? And I mean, are some people just lucky?
No, I don't think people
or is
are
it
lucky.
mostly the decisions we make in life?
And I think
I would say that there's an element of luck. Sure is.
I think if you believe in luck, I used to believe more in luck. I don't think it's luck anymore. I
Okay.
think there's a certain probability of things happening based on decisions you've made. I think if you go to Vegas, that's luck. I mean, you spin a wheel or you put some cards out and you either get good cards or bad cards. You spin a wheel, it either gives you a good number or a bad number, and that's all gamed anyway, so you don't even know how honest that is. So the thing is, in life, you have choices. And we have a million choices a day we make. Every step we take is a choice. So luck, I don't know. I don't think it's luck. I think we create our own luck, whether it's positive luck or negative luck. I think we create it. And it's just based on the myriad billions of choices we make in a normal lifetime. What the end result of that luck is at the end, or even as you're going through it. Is it going to be good luck or bad luck? Why don't
And
we just call it?
sometimes it's not. We don't even know which choices are going to be the big ones. You know, sometimes it's a tiny little choice you make.
Oh, an accident.
And
Yeah.
you meet a person. You know.
Yeah. What do they call it? The accidental life? I had a great life, but I have no idea how I got here. A lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But we are almost out of time. We've been going almost an hour, and I know we can go
Wow.
a lot longer. But I don't think our viewers will last a lot longer. So we're gonna keep this down. We'll have to have you back on.
This is. I've really enjoyed this. This was great.
I've known Patti for a while, and she's much more subdued now. This is a calmer Patti.
I am much more subdued.
It's a little
But that
scary,
was an
actually.
intentional choice because the other way of being wasn't working for me.
But the other way was fun too. Yeah, don't lose yourself in yourself. Remember,
No, I'm not. I'm the same person. I've just decided I wanted a much calmer life.
Yep. And to our lovely little doormat in the middle here, what are we going to do with you?
Well, Patti, I love your book. I'm going to buy a copy because
I want to send it to you.
It gives them gifts. I just
Okay.
think it's great.
Thank you.
It is a good book. I think you'll
Thank
really
you very
enjoy
much,
it.
Rick. Thank you for everything you've done to help me promote it. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. And I hope you sell tons of it.
I hope so too.
Then you'll be the best rich boss of you. That's our
No,
goal.
no, no. What I want is just to, what I'm hoping is just so that I can make some kind of living as a writer. That's what I'm hoping
That'd be great.
for.
That'd be great. And you know what? It's a great start. Well, you've written before, but this is
Yeah, I've written all my life, but I've got the next book I'm working on is what we know about decision making and how to make better decisions, which is targeting the central theme.
Wow, that's really good too. Are you willing to do workshops?
I am.
Excellent.
That's
Yeah,
good.
that's an interesting direction.
Well, if
Yeah,
you need to,
I mean, so I don't need to be an award-winning author or anything. Just enough to eke out a living, so that I can keep writing.
that sounds great. And Patti, where can people find your book?
It will be on Amazon starting on June 9th.
On June 9th. Okay. So another couple of weeks. A little less
Another
than 2
couple
weeks.
weeks.
That sounds good. So
Perfect.
we will have the book out.
Susan,
That's going
write
to be
me
and
I'll
print.
send you a copy.
And
Or
that
Thank you.
Rick, you can send a copy to her.
I will. And that's going to be a Kindle
Thank you.
and printed book.
Kindle and printed.
That's great. And are you giving any talks anytime soon?
That's a good question. I knew you were going to ask that, and I don't remember. Right here, I'm giving a talk right here.
Right here. Right here. So you heard it here. This is the talk. She doesn't. She won't remember this afterwards. No. Anyway.
I think I am, but I can't remember where.
Okay.
I know there's one in Denver, but I can't remember.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I'm sure it'll come back to you.
Yeah. Right after we hang up.
Yep. It is a very good book. Definitely recommend it. It's it's actually, and it's written in a nice style. It's not going to bore you. You're not going to sit there going, I don't know what to do with myself. It's actually very well written. So you are a good writer.
Thank you.
And it's a good message. You know what? We all need these kind of messages. And turn off those radios. You don't need it every 24 minutes, every
You're
second.
right.
Of your life.
All this distraction and negativity needs to stop.
Yeah. Turn off the
Just help
news. Turn off the news. It's not going to help you any. You know, all you can control is what's around you, and maybe more if you write. So we hope a lot of people buy the book, and I hope a lot of people pay attention to what's in the book, because there's some really good advice and some good techniques to be the best boss of you.
Thank you.
If you're watching the show, please, there's a thumbs up and a thumbs down at the end of the video. The thumbs down, just ignore it. The thumbs up, that's the one you want to press, because that's the good one. If you don't like it, just press thumbs down, and we'll try to make it better next time, or not. We'll just try to be ourselves. But also subscribe. If you subscribe, that way you'll know when we have new shows. You'll be notified of it, and we'll appreciate it. So anyway, Susan, thanks for being there today. You're on your vacation. Today it's our day off for everybody. This is Memorial Day, by the way, where we're recording this. It'll be up later on YouTube, but thank you guys so much for coming up on a Memorial Day and spending time with us. We appreciate it. And Susan, enjoy your stay down south. The birds are all chirping happily for you. So.
Oh, it's a beautiful place. I highly recommend it. It's a little town called Sayulita, and it's very well known for its surf, and it's worth it's just beautiful.
It sounds beautiful. Anyway, I think we became friends with one of the parrots right around you somewhere.
and I got lucky. No mangoes fell on my head.
That's true. That's true. Well, shh. Don't count your blessings yet. Anyway, well, all of you guys have a great day. We appreciate it. Have a good rest of the holiday, and we'll see you guys next week on LifeEdge. This is episode number 3. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Rick.